Hello and welcome. Thank you everyone for coming. It's our regular Tuesday night, and so we're just kind of hanging out and having a good time with an interesting topic. Purple rhymes with orange is actually the one that came up with this topic for me. I just went into a chat room and said, "Hey, what should we stream about?" And Purple came up with this idea of if God is real, what difference does it make? So I said, hey, Purple, since it's your idea, why don't you come and help us talk about it? So we got a panel together, and here we are. Before we get started, I do want to make one housekeeping note, and that is a couple weeks ago, my personal troll showed up in the chat and afterward was complaining that he got timed out for disagreeing with people. And I have no problems with people posting stuff in the chat that we completely disagree with. The only thing I want moderators to time people out for is if they are making inappropriate comments. And I realize why the situation happened. It happened because I had specifically asked moderators to watch for inappropriate comments on that stream because there had been some inappropriate comments directed at some of the panel members in some of the pre-show publicity. So the pendulum just kind of swung a little bit too far the other direction. So with that out of the way, welcome to everyone. And I'm going to give everyone a chance to say hello, but this is the first time I have ever had Oz on my channel. So we'll let Oz go first.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for having me here. Always good to hang out and talk Bible with a bunch of heathens. So we can do that. But yeah, Oz, I am with the Atheist Roundtable, and I guess the only thing I'll throw out there right now, we go to our website, TART.live. Everything you need to know is there, just to keep it easy, or simple and easy. But on February 20th, I'm really, really excited about this. We're going to do an entire stream. I'm trying to figure out if it's going to be hour and a half, 2 hours or longer. I don't know, but an entire stream that's dedicated to promoting people that have created channels within like the last 3 to 6, 7 months, something like that. And they're trying to get traction, trying to gain awareness, and just help them turn up the volume or the exposure on their voice, their channel, their message, and continuing to normalize atheism.
Have you seen The African Humanist yet?
Actually, he is on my list to contact this weekend. Well, then there's two channels because I found one because I was already told I found one that's a he. So then I need to.
Okay, yeah, Esther is her channel is called The African Humanist.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, if I can get the information, absolutely, I'll give the invitation, and we'll have to I'll have to talk to him about separating that somehow because that's good. That's going to be a marketing issue.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Julie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Julie. I do Wine and Reason on Tuesdays at 2 in the afternoon. Right now, I don't know, hopefully I'll have a job again soon, so I might have to shift the time of that. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Granny, thanks for asking me.
Okay, Randolph.
Hi, thank you for having me here as well. My name is Randolf Richardson. I'm the founding president of an organization called the Canadian Atheists. And as TART had mentioned, Oz had just mentioned normalizing atheism a moment ago. That is part of our mandate as well. We'd like to see atheism be normal in Canadian society and throughout the world. And what I mean by that is that when somebody asks, for example, are you religious? When people answer yes, nobody shakes their head at it. Nobody seems concerned. And we want the same for atheists, to be regarded with the same kind of respect, instead of being greeted with surprise and shock and worry and concern, as does happen. So that is something that we are working toward. And I have an upcoming project that I'll be co-hosting with a famous fellow named Neil, the 604 Atheist, called True North Talk, which will be an atheism call-in program from Canada. And we will cover just about any topic. We'll steer clear of politics because we want to have fun and enjoy the show. And politics seem to not be a really fun topic, but everything else will be quite wide open. So thank you very much for having all of us on, organizing all this Godless Granny. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Purple.
Yeah, not too much going on. I'm just trying to get things together here. So I do just do casual chats Wednesdays at noon and Thursdays at midnight Central Standard Time.
Okay. And last but not least, Cynthia, welcome.
Thank you for having me. God bless Granny. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia. I am co-host of a political show called The 13%. We talk about socio-political issues dealing with the people who, well, Black folk that come from U.S. chattel slavery. I also write a blog about Black folk who come from chattel slavery called ADOShealthandwellness.com. It talks about the social determinants of health concerning that particular group. And I do occasionally show up on different atheist streams. Oh yes, I forgot. I'm one of the hosts of the nonprofits. How can I forget that? And so that particular show talks about political topics and other news.
We're having some issues with your audio, Cynthia.
Oh, okay. Hold on 1 second.
It got a little bit crackly there.
Yeah.
Sounds like things are getting straightened out, though.
Yep.
Okay. What about now? Is that better?
Perfect.
Yes, that's better.
Great. Okay. So yeah, nonprofit. So I'm one of the hosts of the newly rebooted nonprofits from the ACA, where we talk about current events and sometimes politics from a skeptical point of view. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. There you go. Thanks for having me. Can't wait to get into this topic.
Okay. And thank you to everyone who has come. Thank you to KCA Randy, to Titan Uranus. Let's see, who else? Mr. Shadow Kitty, Noah Bunga Jr., Atheist Edge, Mama Atheist, hello daughter, Godless Sewing, Junie the Apostate, Dog, Fran Wilson, Mr. Shadow Kitty, Godless Sewing. Did I miss anybody?
Cowabunga Jr., I think, was missed.
Oh, Cowabunga Jr., sorry.
There we go. No problem.
It's hard to make sure you get them all.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as you put your cursor on them, you can't see them anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to today's topic. If there is a God, assuming that a God exists, does it even matter? And one of the things that we have to consider in this topic is, what is God? Because, you know, you could be talking about the Christian God, you could be talking about Allah, you could be talking about Thor, you could be talking about just a vague general idea of a force in the universe that maybe has no personality, is just, you know, some kind of a physical force. So is there a God, you know, assuming that there is a God, if there is some kind of God out there, does it matter? Who'd like to go first?
Well, this is just the stance I've been taking with Christians about the last 2 years, is that, okay, I'll skip over the whole part of does God exist. Let's assume he exists exactly as described in the Bible. You've still got a long way to go to convince me he's worth worshiping.
Yeah, there's certain characteristics I find are quite common that get mentioned, such as omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, and things like that. So the way I see it is, there is certainly a paradox when you're mixing omniscience and omnipotence.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're all powerful and all knowing, and you know that tomorrow it's going to rain in my city, then tomorrow comes along and you use your power to change the weather to snow or sunshine, you have now invalidated your omniscience from the day before. Therein lies the paradox. And that's why I see it as a problem, because nobody's really been able to solve that. There's usually excuses like, well, it doesn't work quite that way or something, and some big explanation comes up. So I have questions about, really, does it matter? Because it goes back to the fundamentals. I'm not convinced it exists.
Well, and that gets into the whole problem with prayer. That if God has a plan, is your praying going to make God change his plan?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
I used to look at it.
Omniscience and omnipotence are my sticking points too. Sorry, Granny, because I had my hand raised. Because Yeah, if God is all knowing and all powerful, and yet everything then no, it doesn't matter that God exists at all, because everything that's going to happen and will happen to us, God already knows and has already decided to either do nothing about it or to do whatever they're going to do about it, and it doesn't matter. And no amount of human intervention, prayer, sacrifice, whatever, could change that. Okay, sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
I was just going to say that when I was a Christian, I had thought about that question, and the answer that I came up with was that prayer wasn't really well.
Or do whatever they're going to do about it, and it doesn't matter.
Oops, sorry about that. I was moving some stuff and I accidentally turned on a mic I didn't intend to turn on. Anyway,
It wasn't me for once.
Anyway, I looked at it as, prayer is for God's benefit. We're not asking God so that he will know, because he already knows. Prayer was for our benefit, so that we would share our own concerns with one another and we would take care of one another. And so I looked at it that, that prayer really wasn't about God. It was about human relationships.
Yeah, the prayer. I could talk about prayer for quite a while, because I did a little study on that, but I'll stay on topic right now. I'm going to give a personal story just from 2 days ago. So some may argue, well, this is now anecdotal. For this argument, I don't give a shit. I had two people that I know that passed away the same day from cancer. One was a 12-year-old little boy, and both families were Christian families. And I watched them go through this process of praying and pleading and praying and pleading, and the agony of the family, but more so watching the ones that are now passed, and especially the little boy not understanding anything that's going on, all of this, and then to watch them now going through the mourning process. It's like, okay, if this is a God that is truly all knowing, all loving, and he knows, he knew the plan for you before you're even in your mother's womb, yet he still chose that as that 12-year-old boy's little plan. It shows whether you are real or not, it doesn't matter, because you do not intervene, you don't help, you do nothing for your creation.
If I may just piggyback on Julie and Oz, especially when we talk about, it doesn't matter if God exists. Just with your story, Oz, about the two people that you knew that passed away from cancer after their family prayed fervently for a God to intervene on their behalf. And if they pass away, oftentimes I know I've seen it as a Christian and even as an atheist, apologetics start to kind of like jump in to say that, oh, well, if they passed away, then it must not have been God's will for them to survive. And if God does exist, I'm wondering to myself, like, well, how do I know this deity's mind as far as like what it wants and what it does not want? Who survives and who doesn't? Should I pray or should I not pray? Even if I do pray to you for an omniscient and omnipotent God, what makes you think that, what assurance do I have that said deity would intervene on my behalf because I ask it to? We have no assurances, even if we do give, the presupposing of God existing, that God would even do anything that, pastors, preachers, evangelists say that God will do. If you ask anything in his name, he will do it. If it be his will, he will do it. I'm paraphrasing the Bible, but, and it always has to be concerning if it's his will. Well, what is the will? It starts to raise all these particular questions about if it matters if this person exists or if this deity exists or not. What would it matter in my particular life if this deity can pick and choose what it will and will not do?
Yeah, and to even back up everything you just said was all bullseye. And this is just a little piece on the prayer that's related to this. So the Bible says that, the Lord's Prayer, that thy will be done on earth as it is heaven. But then in, was it Corinthians, I think it is, says anything that you ask any of these things in my name, and I will grant them to you. So hold on,
No.
is it you're praying,
It
is
says
it I'm
if you
praying
ask
to you?
anything in my name, he hears you. Not that he'll grant it, just that he hears you.
Okay. I'll double check myself on that here in a second. But then if you go to when Jesus is in the garden and before he's getting ready to be taken to be crucified, I have a issue with whose will we're praying here, because he says, if this cup can pass from me, let it pass from me. But nonetheless, your will be done. Well, if they're one and the same, which will are we praying?
That was the big crack for me as a Catholic, being raised as a Catholic, and that was a big one. That was the first thing that kind of fell away for me. Was I wasn't I was reading the Bible. I was trying to figure out how to be Catholic and also frankly, to get a little personal, also reckon that with the fact that I liked boys and girls, and the fact, and by that I was like 17. I'm not, you know what I mean. I liked kids my own age of all genders, and and like, okay, well, we're talking in middle school speak here. This is insane. Anyway, I was sexually attracted to other people my own age, and you can't be that way, and be Catholic. It's not okay. So I kind of hid behind that. Well, at least I also like boys part. So maybe I can get married and it'll be fine. Or maybe I should, go to a convent, because I'd been to a retreat and the nuns seemed relatively happy. And then I really hit puberty and I realized that was not an option. So I was like, okay, this is what the church says. This is doctrine. This isn't what the Bible says. I'm going to read the Bible, right? So I started reading the Bible. And one of the things that would have supported what you were just saying, Oz, was, dang it, there's a letter of Paul, and I can't remember where it is, but it basically says that a promise made to Peter was, anything you hold true on earth, I will hold true in heaven. So that what you were saying.
Jesus said that.
There we go. Thank you.
Jesus said, "You are the rock upon which I will build my church," and the keys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Granny. I knew you'd have my back on the scripture, because Junk Shop isn't here, and I'm not Catholic. All right, I don't. I read it once. That was it. I was done. But
real quick, just for I looked it up just because I never want to say something and it come off like I'm trying to make stuff up just to make my argument sound.
No worries.
Says oh shit, where am I? Matthew, I believe it's 21. That's absolutely confusing. 21. I think it's 22. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive it if you have faith.
There's another scripture that I think that you really wanted to utilize, Oz. It's actually 1 John 5, verses 14 through 15. And this is the confidence that we have toward him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us, like you said.
That's
Randy.
the one I was referring to.
Yeah, right. And if we know that he hears us, and whatever we ask, we know that we have the request that we have asked of him. Doesn't it sound like I used to actually study to be a minister? Because I did. Thanks.
It does. Yeah. And I gotta tell y'all, I come from a very religious family. Religion was not taken lightly in my household. I had 4 great uncles who were priests, and my own grandfather was in seminary for a long time. Just saying, like, I have never had more Bible study than when I'm hanging out with a bunch of atheists. Just so you know, throwing it out there. But also, no, it was that part, the agony in the garden. It was Jesus wept. It was that moment that made me think, this is a man. This is not a God. And that was the first part of it to fall.
There's two points that came up a little earlier that I did want to comment on. One was a comment from Mr. Shadow Kitty about deists, and it was when Cynthia was talking about there's no guarantees to relying on this ruler, this celestial dictator.
Right,
you didn't call him the celestial dictator. I'm calling him that. like Christopher Hitchens.
I would say that I concur. Continue.
Yeah. So, and this is the comment. Thank you for showcasing this, Godless Granny. So, yeah, Mr. Shadow Kitty stated that he was basically a deist for many years, and finally just said, "Enough of this. I'm an atheist. After all, what good is a God who doesn't even know that I exist?" So. The thing about deism, there are two types of deists I'll just mention that I've encountered, and of all the deists I've spoken with. One camp believes that there was a deity that created everything and was all powerful and all knowing and all this, or whatever their characteristics are, and just simply lost interest and moved on to something else, or it's just not, for whatever reason, is not paying any attention to us, not interacting with us, there's no idea what's going on, or it's just, we're off their radar. The other one believes that that deity is dead, either died of natural causes or an accident or whatever. The stories vary, but those are the two main camps that I've noticed. And there's more variation as you talk to them more, but those are the main major categories that I've discovered. And I think when considering what we see with deism, with a deity who's not involved, I get the feeling that there's really no difference from what we see with these other deities that could very well be made up. And I suspect probably are, because we don't really see any reaction coming from them. So if we're asking this question, definitely we should extend that to the deistic deities as well. And I suspect we'll find there's really no difference overall. The other point was about relying on a leader. And I think that this whole idea with a lot of these religions is that we need to rely on leaders. Leaders very rarely have our best interests at heart, if at all. And we really need to rely on ourselves more. And
Ooh, say that one more time, Randolph. You was preaching. I'm about to send you an offering. Say that one more again.
an offering. Well, maybe I should find out what that offering is first.
We'll send you acorns. Don't worry about it. Just keep talking.
Acorns? Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe those will.
I got you some shekels. There you go. How about that? Dinars.
We'll send dance.
Did you say shackles? That sounds kind of medieval. You and I need to talk.
Did I mention I thought about converting to Judaism after I decided Jesus wasn't a god? Anyway. Yeah, and then you read the Old Testament and you're like, "Ooh, that guy really hates women. I don't know if I want to."
And you know what's peculiar about the Holy Bible, I think, is that they forbid male homosexuality, but there doesn't seem to be any mention of female homosexuality.
That part.
That's the one thing I kind of dig about. I mean, I don't dig the domination line.
Yeah.
I had noticed that omission.
It's certainly not treating men and women equally.
Wives and 12 concubines. They gotta keep themselves busy somehow. There is not, I mean.
Well, the history of China, the emperors certainly have them beat with their 1,000 concubines and all this.
Mm-hmm. Well, Solomon had quite a few. Who knows how many wives and concubines?
Well,
is Solomon who got them all to compromise when they didn't get along?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, listen.
Compromise is a last resort, in my opinion.
Listen, let me tell you guys something. You can't have all those concubines together, especially with if we look at one biblical character, David. David obviously had a very insatiable sexual appetite. So who knows what in the world?
Very good friendship with his shield bearer. Or am I thinking of someone else?
Yeah, it's Jonathan.
That's Jonathan.
Jonathan was his close friend. I wanted to give Purple a chance to address Junie's question, though, because Junie addressed a question at Purple.
Oh,
we should read the question out.
I had mentioned that I had been born Catholic, but I got kicked out of the children's Bible study. The senior priest of the church pulled my mother aside one day and asked her to stop sending me because I was asking questions that made the nuns uncomfortable.
Well, obviously, Seraphim has had a similar experience because she says that her aunt was told never to bring her back to the Mormon church after she got into a discussion with the Sunday school lady about whether or not everyone must have children.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? Has anybody? This has been my experience, and this is even oftentimes when you are questioning leadership, especially in a religious institution or religious hierarchy. It always seems that every time that you question them or question, some of the things that's being said or done, you always get kicked out. I know that happened to me. I'm just saying.
Right? No, I got taken into the hallway in
Rebels.
because I was a Catholic. So for me, it was Sunday nights or Wednesday night catechism because I went to public school. So that's where all the horrible public school children whose parents couldn't afford the Catholic school tuition went. And my mother was the PRE, Parish Religious Education Director of our entire diocese at the time, and which they did not pay her for, obviously, or I would have been in Catholic school. So thank you, that diocese. Thank you. I'm really glad I got to go to public school. But the point is that, yeah, I got yanked out into the hallway for asking the wrong questions and trying to come up with weird answers. Like I remember asking I can't remember her name, Sister somebody, what her, I said, they must have reckoned time differently back then. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, nobody lives to be 600 years old. That's ridiculous. And she just kind of turned away.
Damn logic.
Seraphim says she wasn't kicked out of the Southern Baptist Church, and they told her to just pray God would provide the answers.
Okay.
Sure. I was told by a young lady that who I took to a grocery store after it was a whole bunch of BLM protests in their city, and we had to go to a neighboring state to go grocery shopping, and she basically proselytized me from the time that we were done grocery shopping all the way back to the city. And the last thing that she told me, especially I just kind of killed the whole conversation to say that you can't prove God exists. No one can. And she said, yes, I can. I said, no, you cannot. As a matter of fact, and then she said, well, prove he doesn't exist. I said, I can't. I cannot, and then she said, well, you know what? I will pray that God reveals himself to you. I said, well, you do that because I got a whole lot of shit to ask that motherfucker.
Yeah.
I like this
is why I
comment.
like Cynthia. She tells it like it is.
It's perfect. Yeah, what Cynthia just said, exactly. Same answer. Like, if God exists, I've got questions. And I think Junie does too. I think everybody here does.
I like this comment from Kel, surname undecided. If when I died, I found myself in front of God listing my sinful ways, I'd ask for directions to hell. I'm Welsh. I live on top of a mountain. I'm freezing cold 5 months out of the year. I grew up in Milwaukee, very close to where Cynthia lives, very close to Lake Michigan, and we got lake effect snow, and we had snow most of the time 6 months out of the year. I used to always tell everybody it never snowed in July or August.
I'm so jealous. I hate the heat, and I'm born and raised in the South.
I love the heat. I love the heat.
You'll like it here.
Yeah, I would like it there. Unfortunately, Junk Shop would not. Junk Shop.
I've never lived south of Chicago.
That's important.
Yes.
And I'm in Minnesota now, so it's I just expect everything to be white from the middle of November until sometime in March.
Oh, we haven't had a single snow this year, and that's not that unusual. Although we usually do have one in January, at least one. But
it was 70 degrees here yesterday and 68 today.
Oh my gosh.
Even for North Alabama, this is unseasonably warm.
Climate change is real, y'all.
Yes,
exactly.
Climate change is most definitely real.
Is very real. Yes, it is. It snowed here, but we didn't get a lot of snow. And I remarked to a family member, I said, "Oh, snow is so pretty." She said, "I don't want to be in it." I'm like, no, you admire it from afar. Say, oh, look outside the house. That's pretty. Okay, let me go ahead and go back over here. But that's about it.
Yeah, so global warming is real everywhere but Indiana. It just stays cold here.
I've been in Southern Indiana. And I can concur. But it's also really beautiful. You guys have amazing natural beauty. At least in the part of Indiana I was in. I don't know exactly where I was a kid. and it was right across the river from, or right across from Louisville, Kentucky. And
Southern Indians are beautiful.
okay, yeah, I was visiting an aunt and an uncle, and they had several acres, and it was just beautiful. I mean, all these beautiful trees, and yeah. Sorry, we're getting off topic. Anyway,
that's all right. I'm throwing up all the comments about the weather. We're getting weather reports from all over the world now.
Is it possible to? I'm so sorry. There was a comment that was made like earlier and I'm trying to find it, but it was specifically, I believe it was from Godless Sewing. Godless Sewing, who mentioned about, you know, I'm a descendant from the ones who they call Ham. Did you see that?
I did see that. That was quite early. I'll find it and I'll get it up. Go ahead and talk about what you want while I look for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another reason why, if God is real, I would question God. Why? For the simple fact of the matter is that why would you allow a lot of problematic interpretations of your book to be espoused, to be used to oppress an entire people?
Absolutely, you are absolutely right. And also, what about like Ham himself in the story? His only sin is that his daddy got drunk and passed out naked.
Yeah,
and he happened to come by.
Yeah.
That's all that was. Ham didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Noah was a freaking drunk.
Exactly. So how is that Ham? So Ham's like, you saw his nakedness, therefore you've been marked. I'm like, wait, what?
Sorry, I walked backwards with a blanket everywhere I was going, Dad. Like maybe you could have put on pants. That
part of the story never made sense.
No.
And the other two, the other two brothers had the heads up. Like Ham, he just came across it. It wasn't his fault. He wasn't like going out to like search out his dad for doing something wrong. He just happened to come by, and that was the situation.
Far too often, especially in the Old Testament, they have people who supposedly are very much so proponents of God, and they worship him, and they still get like shattered on, specifically Job. I remember being a Christian and how that particular story was always used, especially like in the evangelical church, on how if you go through suffering and trial, that God will give you, double for your trouble. That was always like, that was always a great,
felt the Holy Ghost,
right? Right? You didn't know it was indigestion, now did you, Tart? You didn't know. But yeah, I sometimes I think about, like, at first, like when I would listen to that story and I would hear all these particular sermons talk about double for your trouble, and using the example of Job, and then like oftentimes like I bought that hook, line, and sinker, like, okay, if I just go through this and I'm a servant of the Lord, then I'm going to be blessed beyond measure, right? But when you really start to examine that story, I mean, God's character is highly questionable.
Absolutely.
Like, if you let a person who worshipped you, gave burnt offering, tithe, fasted, all this other stuff, he did all the alls. Like Job was just almost beyond reproach.
Oh yeah, he was, and it was. Oh, I'm sorry. It was just the Satan, which I don't even think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was basically a bet with Satan, saying that if Job won't curse me, and I'm gonna show you. And he said, and Satan was basically like, bet you he will. And then God was like, bet you he won't. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, you can do all this other stuff except kill him. And he took the hedge of protection from him so that Satan can kill his wife, kill his children, have his friends turn back on him, lose all his stuff, get sick, damn near die, but not for real. It's kind of like
his faith.
All this stuff, and it's like even if I did worship you, what guarantee again do I have that you ain't gonna try to play a trick on me with the devil just to prove a point? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My problem with that story is the whole God can't allow sin in his presence. So why is Satan sitting there hanging out with God?
Right,
They're
right.
homeboys.
That
They're
part.
homeboys.
That part.
They are.
Yeah.
They
They
are
in cahoots.
homeboys. Yeah.
Well, and the other part of that story is like it's supposed to have this positive ending that, Job proved himself to God and God made everything right and,
Yeah,
like
it's 'cause you
gave him
gotta
back
stop
everything and
the
gave him a new
time.
family and all. And okay, even if that's great for Job, that's really not too good for his wife and kids before that point, was it?
No. And also, it's not even good for the wife and children he has at the end of the story because it just shows that we're replaceable. That's it. In the biblically, women and children are ultimately replaceable.
Yeah,
Yep.
if you look at all the collateral damage and bloodbaths that were performed or done in God's name, or they were commanded by God, especially obviously in the Old Testament. Again, why do we need it to be real? And if He is real, why in the world would I choose to follow and serve this God? And then real quick to then bounce out off something Cynthia said a minute ago. And Cynthia, I meant to say this when we opened up. It's great to finally be on the stream with you as well.
Likewise. Likewise.
The whole Bible thing with this God guy, you knew the beginning from the end, and you chose written text that could be manipulated, could be changed, could be edited over and over and over again. And that is the form, the fashion, the mechanism, the way you chose to communicate your salvation message to your creation. I'm sorry, the whole all-knowing thing is now out the window because that's proved to be bullshit.
Unless that's what he wanted. And the thing is, Christopher Hitchens raised an interesting point on this to elaborate on what you're saying, Oz, that he chose to bring all this to people who were pretty well all illiterate in the desert, and where things are very hard and communication isn't that great because people are focused more on survival, instead of going to, say, the Chinese, who are already literate and would be able to record this accurately and transmit the message much, much more effectively, much larger society. So yeah, there's all kinds of questions like that. It seems to me that one of the things that, in answer to the topic, that what makes God necessary or real or important, right, is how believers in this God try to impose the ideas onto society is the only part that makes it relevant, I think. Otherwise, I think for the most part, it is irrelevant. I don't know what you folks' thoughts are on this. As somebody who's never been religious myself, I've always been an atheist. I think the questions that I'd have for deity, should they show themselves to me at some point, I suspect might be, I probably would have some different questions than you would. Of course, one of my basic questions would be, how come you never revealed yourself to anybody or myself before? And I would expect maybe that's a question of some of you as well, but I'm curious what kind of questions you would ask.
No.
Sorry, I was going to share something that Randolph said on that debate they were talking about with the one guy that does the one thing. He brought it up, and I was like, oh, I love that. I've never heard it positioned like that before. He had asked Randolph, what would it take for you to say that there is a God, to believe in a God? Again, not to follow him, but to at least acknowledge its And Randolph told him that he would want to be able to operate within the omnis, essentially for a period of time, whether it's a week or whatever, to where he can see it, feel it, know it from that vantage point, be able to communicate with God from that vantage point, and the agreement being he won't change anything. He'll keep everything the same as this God had planned it, but he wants to be able to see and talk to him with that same vantage point. And I was like, bingo. I thought that was brilliant.
I like that. I like that a lot, Oz. I have one issue with it, and it's that, and I love it. I mean, honestly, if that happened to me, yeah, that would work. I wouldn't necessarily worship the person, the God, worship the deity, but it would definitely convince me. However, having said that, I wouldn't be able to convince anyone else. with that.
Oh,
It would just be an anecdotal experience that
when I put this up on Twitter, this challenge originally. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think anybody in here who was raised with religion, you've had what you would categorize as spiritual experiences, and then you go on to discover things like, and I am being intentionally flippant here, but like great music or sex, and you realize that yeah, and dancing in the woods under the full moon, whatever it might be for you, that there are great experiences that you can have, and they're transformative like experiences, and they aren't necessarily the Holy Spirit, but to get there from the indoctrination, when you're raised in it. I've got my great grandfather who I never met, but who I was always told was watching over me. I've got his crucifix that he brought, that my great grandmother put around his neck when she put him on a ship to America from Germany in the 19th century. I mean, this is, it was unthinkable to me that there not be a God.
So
until it was.
And to clarify, one thing I would want to do is to find out, when I first put that challenge out on Twitter a few years ago, because somebody asked what would it take to prove a deity. So it wasn't a new thing I just came up with in the debate last week, but it's been in my head for quite a while. There would be some things I'd like to change by trying to experiment with things and prove things are the way they are and explore the galaxy. A number of people said, "Oh, can I come with you?" And so the promise I put out there was, sure, I'll create a Starship Enterprise, but a really large one, and I'll make sure everyone gets to see everything in person with me. And so some people say, I'll sign up on the list. I said, you won't have to, because I'll have omniscience. I'll know that you want to go.
I totally want to go on the Starship Enterprise. Randolph, don't forget me, okay?
I did not need omniscience to know that.
I've worshipped Nichelle Nichols since I was a little girl. Just saying, like this.
Right.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Nichelle Nichols' 1967 body right now, people. So,
but it would be great. People would be bringing cameras. They'd be bringing all kinds of measurement equipment and wanting to look out the windows and measure different stars and see Andromeda up close and all kinds of other things. And the planet that's made completely of carbon that's crushed so heavy it's a big diamond. Another one that's just all water and crushed so heavy it's ice in the middle, but it's not cold, like frozen ice and stuff like that. It'd be all kinds of interesting things to enjoy.
And what happens if it doesn't have a molten, if it doesn't have a core? Okay, sorry.
I wouldn't want to do it alone. I'd want to have lots of people coming along and enjoying it too, right?
Yeah.
I figured I'd need a fortnight for this, not just 1 week. But 1 week would be okay too.
Okay, well, Granny, get us back on track.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Maybe Purple Rhymes with Orange can do that for us.
Well, I was just going to say, if you were all powerful, time would be irrelevant.
Yes.
And
that part.
And that was one of the responses. The most common response I got to this was that, oh, you wouldn't need that much time. It's like they're trying to negotiate the amount of time I would need down to the bare minimum.
Well, instead of what I was thinking
arranging it to happen. Ask your deity. All things are possible with God, according to the book of John. So why not this?
Time is what was on my mind after watching your recent debate. I don't remember who your opponent was. On whether or not there's evidence that God exists.
That would be Ben Fisher.
Yeah. And he was
a modern day debate. Yeah.
He was making the argument that there has to be a God, because if there is no God and time goes infinitely into the past, it can't move forward, because any point forward in time would always be infinitely far away and you'd never get there. And after hearing that argument, I said, that's the same argument as an arrow shot into the air doesn't move, because at any point it is where it is and it isn't where it isn't. And so because the arrow always is where it is and it never is where it isn't, it can never move.
I'm not convinced that time moves. I see it as something that we just observe the passing of. I don't see it as a traversable dimension, but I know it's expressed that way out of convenience, and it works very well to express it that way.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing about time. That's a man construct in order for us to kind of get a better idea of what we're dealing with now.
Hang on.
What?
Albert Einstein does not get full credit for his work. His wife helped him a lot.
Yeah, his second wife and his first wife both.
Right.
You can't say it's all men.
I meant man as human, okay? Not necessarily concerning gender or sex or anything like that. That is a concept. It's kind of like social constructs that we all have so that we can get like a better understanding of how we function in society or function in our environment. I look at time the same way. And the reason being is because like what other concept would we utilize in order for us to to figure out dates and when we're supposed to do this versus when we're supposed to do that. Like, we need some type of, a frame, like a framework in order for that to, for us to get a better understanding is basically what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, rather than driving this further off topic, I think we should make it a discussion for another time that we should all get together to discuss the nature of time.
Sure.
I would love to have that conversation.
One comment in the chat real quick first. Fran Wilson wrote that time is the fourth dimension in physics. I'd like to just say, yeah, it's the fourth dimension in three-dimensional physics. So that time is the fourth one.
And also, we may only distinguish or perceive, rather, time linearly because that's how our brains can handle experiencing time. If time is not actually linear, I'm not saying it's not, by the way. I know jack shit about physics. Both my degrees are in English. But if it's not, that would explain deja vu, for example. And also, Granny, the face I was making when you were talking, it was about that other guy's argument that you were referencing. It was not at you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I saw that. I remember that.
Yes, same here, because I watched that debate too, and it was that, somebody put my head through a brick wall, please.
Well, another thing along those lines, and I don't really want to get too far into time, but this does go into the relevance of God as well, and that is the concept of before time is an incoherent concept.
Thank you.
Because if it's before time, there had to be a time for it to be before time, and so the argument that God has to be eternal because there had to be something there before time. No, there didn't, because before time is incoherent.
Well, my answer always to that is like, if there was something before time, prove it.
Yeah, and that was my Granny. My follow up is, how the fuck do you know? How do you even know that?
Right?
Yeah. And
I hate that.
Work if you do, but I mean, okay, go ahead.
Well, and that goes into with the Big Bang, that at the point of singularity, all the rules of physics break down, so our mere concept of what exists ceases to exist.
Oh my God. Oh, River Tam from. Oh yes, no, I know this. This is great. This is from the space western that Joss Whedon wrote after Buffy. Guys, help me out! Come on, are there no nerds on this panel?
Let me read the comment first. Eric says, we'll have to call it early quantum state phenomena. The only way to fit 5,000 species of mammals on the same boat.
Single boat, River Tam, and that is from Firefly. The show is Firefly.
Oh my gosh, yes. I love that series.
Right? It was the episode where Shepherd Book had to like look after River while they were all off doing some adventuring or what have you. Or
Right.
Yeah. Right. And he's such a great character. Okay.
I just saw mammals in a boat, and I thought we were talking about the Ark. My bad.
She was. No. She was.
She was quoting Firefly. Yeah.
She got hold of his Bible, and she's like off the charts, crazy smart, right? And human beings have already terraformed worlds and are already like Old Youth is. Sorry, not Old Youth. That's funny though that I said that. Freudian slip. Old Earth got all used up, so they're colonizing other places, and she's super she's crazy, but she's also super smart. So she was trying to figure out how she was reading his Shepherd Book's Bible and trying to figure out how to make it actually work in reality.
Right. She was trying to correct it.
She was.
Yeah, she was specifically correct.
I think I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, that was a great episode, especially when she's like, it's full of flaws. I'm going to correct it. He's like, no, don't do that. And I was like, yes, do that. It needs to be corrected.
I know. It is funny. It's like I was so sympathetic to him the first time I watched it. And then in subsequent viewings, I'm like, no, go River. Explain exactly how that's possible.
Indeed.
And then Yuhan piggybacks on that, says, just like time reminds me of the same issue with nothingness, the theistic version. You can't have nothing because simply identifying it makes it something.
Exactly. Thank you, Yuhan. We don't know what nothing is.
Yeah. What is nothing?
You're talking about absolutely nothing. And the problem I keep running into with theists in this kind of conversation is that they think the laws of logic still apply. But if it's absolutely nothing, that doesn't mean that that's the case. And so that also means that we can't say it's impossible for something to erupt out of it.
But even like, what's his name? Lawrence Krauss? Is that his name? He wrote something from nothing, didn't he? And
he did, but,
I mean, like, and I know that, like, some people can kind of argue some of his conclusions as far as, like, like physics is concerned. But, but one of the things that he talked about specifically in some of the lectures when it came from something from nothing is that there's always something. Like, even in a perfect vacuum, there's still like radical particles that exist that can kind of blanket in and out of existence.
That's not absolutely nothing. That is something specific.
Right.
Talking about.
Right. Exactly. So there's always something. That's why what I was just basically saying is that there's not ever just nothing.
But I'm talking about absolutely nothing. Ex nihilo nothing.
No, I think Cynthia is too. I think we're all talking about, like, we have never observed absolute nothingness.
As far as we know.
As far as we know.
Right.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what I'm basically saying is that we don't really have on record, as far as like scientists are concerned, that we have observed absolutely nothing. Even in the nothing that we can, say, like, from the naked eye, we can't really see, there's still something there, right?
And hypothetically and philosophically, would it be more likely to be inherently stable or inherently unstable? We really don't know the answer to this.
Right.
I have no idea. English major, no physics.
Yeah, if I could jump, it's kind of along that lines, but it's a different kind of conversation I had. We had a gentleman on this last weekend, and him and I was just going kind of through the Socratic method with him, and very, very smart guy, and the whether you want to call it the word salad or the gymnastics, getting all that. I'm not, I'm now studied enough where I can have at least an intelligent conversation on it, but I prefer the psychology part of knowing why does somebody believe what they believe and digging down to that and epistemology. And I finally just kind of stopped. I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's attack this a different way. If right now, neither you or I can demonstrate that your God exists, correct? He was like, yes. It's like, okay, so is there anything, we'll take, whether you want to take the last 30, 60 days, whatever your life, is there anything that's happened in your life that's been amazing or it's been awful that you can point to and say, God did that, and be able to prove it? And he said, no, I can't. I said, okay, let's say tomorrow we can prove it. We can prove God exists, and still your life goes on the same way it always has. What difference did it make whether you did or didn't have a God? Why do you need that God? And he was like,
That's a really good point.
Great question.
I think that ends the whole discussion right there.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Godless Granny's channel.
I'm not going to shut it down.
Why don't we take a page out of Neil the 604 Atheist's book and consider that the 45-minute warning?
Right. It's live now.
I want to respond to something Uhan Roderick said in the chat, and you're absolutely right, man. Like, we have never observed absolute nothingness. That is ridiculous, and that's because we're not nothing. We're made up of matter and atoms and all of that stuff. And so if we were able to observe it, it would negate nothingness. So that was kind of my point. I just wanted to be clear that I wasn't I wasn't saying we could observe absolute nothingness. No, we can't.
The problem I have with that reasoning is that it is now creating some kind of definition. You're defining absolutely nothing somehow, defining it as not observable.
I'm defining it as I don't know what it is.
Okay, well,
here is nothing. Right. Nothing.
It sounded like you were saying that we can't observe it.
No, we can't observe it because the moment I observe it, I'm there. And I'm not nothing. I'm made of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
you have a concept, you have an idea of what it is, and you have now defined a characteristic of it.
I have a linguistic concept of what nothing is, but I don't don't have a physics concept of what nothing is. But I know enough to know that if I am standing in a place where I could observe nothing, then nothing no longer exists because I can see it. Therefore, it's not nothing.
I like to answer both of you by saying this. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You gotta have something if you want to be with me.
In other words, we're crazy. Okay.
Well, and the most common idea of nothing is people think of just the empty interstellar space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But empty space is defined, by its shape, by the objects it touches. Mm-hmm. And in that respect, actually, even physical objects, their boundaries are defined by the empty space around them.
That's really beautiful, Purple. Sorry, I went to an art place in my head where you're drawing the empty space.
That was like what we call a tonal painting that you just did, Purple.
Ooh, I like that.
The verbal painting. It was really good.
Yes, it was a tonal painting.
Actually, it sent me to thinking about the whole idea of personal boundaries.
As in observe them and quit playing with us. Okay.
Actually, for me, it was a whole different direction, but one that I can't really talk about on live stream. But still, it's something that I often have on my mind.
Yeah, and if you're not sure about, I'm just throwing this in, Granny, but if you're not sure about someone's boundaries, just ask. They'll tell you. Don't assume that you know stuff.
Well, I personally have a personal boundary against God. In other words, I question your existence, but even if you revealed yourself as the young lady asked you to, you can stay over there and I'll be over here. Do not invade my space. Boundaries are set up. Do not cross them. Please and thank you. No, I do not give you consent.
Now, I'm wondering how things might have played out differently if God was a goddess.
Well,
maybe God is a goddess.
Yeah, I mean, a few civilizations definitely did that. Ancient Egypt one. Not necessarily. It depends. Okay, so no, I forgot so much of my neo-pagan stuff.
It really was
gave birth to the Nile River, which fed the land, right, and made crops possible. But I don't remember enough.
It really was the early Christians who decided to go the monotheistic route, because even the Torah refers to Yahweh's wife.
Yeah, and also Elohim, and basically Yahweh was a Canaanite deity that this one tribe or these 12 tribes took as theirs. I don't want to actually. You know what? I'm gonna stop talking.
God equals the square root of -1 has a really good point here. Why would God have a gender?
Ask the Christians.
What would a God need with a gender?
Ask Muslims, because no. Let me finish my sentence. This isn't going to be offensive. I promise.
No, go. Oh no! Please offend away. Offend away.
Offensive. No, Muslims find it offensive to give God a gender, to give Allah a gender, pardon me. So there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet, right? And they use the he there, but really it's offensive to gender Allah because that is bringing Allah down to a human level, and Allah is not a human.
Which Muslims have you been talking about? The Muslims I've talked to all insist that Allah is male and cannot be female.
I didn't say nope. I didn't. I'm just telling you what my ancient history teacher.
Well, I will say that I would say this.
Taught me.
I would say this when it comes to monotheistic belief. This is just from observation. When I have spoken to Christians, when I was one, and also when I have spoken to believing Jews and also Muslims, that oftentimes they structure their religion based on how they want society to look, and it's always patriarchal.
Yeah.
And when it's patriarchal, then they give the example is that, and I know I heard this so many times in church, that the reason why the man needs to be the head, or the man is the head of the household, is because God is a man, and he said it in his and God said it in his word that the man is the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else is just supposed to follow along with whatever he says, and the reason being is because God is considered a he is a man, he is a whatever, and because since he is the head, then I have created man in my image, and that's what you're supposed to follow along with. So
Okay, that's
yeah.
Go ahead,
Now,
Purple, then I want to.
no, I was just going to say this
I'm
now.
sorry.
As far as like if that is how religious text in a monotheistic religion is supposed to be interpreted that way, that's a whole nother thing. But but this is always like the leadership in said religions often espouse God as this particular deity that is male, and this is the reason why man is in this position and women are not.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Purple, and then I have a comment.
Well, I was just going to say that the contrast to that is most of the pagan belief systems usually see the powerful God as being the mother figure.
Yep.
And it's generally, the logic is generally along the lines that the most powerful creation magic is the ability to bring new life into the world.
Yeah, and that's why I became a neo-pagan for a long time after I left Catholicism. For way too long. Believed a lot of weird stuff, but yeah. It was nice to be a part of a religion where you weren't shamed for your gender.
The way that it was presented to me, and I really believed this for a long time, was that if we allowed women to run things, the men would all just sit back and let them. And if we want the men to be involved, then we have to let them run it.
Well, that may be true about like doing the laundry or something, but I don't know. I don't think that would be true. Oh, you know what? I'm going to mute myself before I get in trouble.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. I don't know how much stock I'd put into it, because I know I would be there. Like with my wife, I'm there in a heartbeat to help her. Whether it's raising the kids, doing chores around the house, whatever it is. So I don't know. And maybe the first person that said that was tongue in cheek. But what I do know is the Christian God, the Bible God, definitely doesn't like women, right? We know that he doesn't prefer women at all. And when you, as far as the gender identification with this said God, which side point, not only do I not believe in God, but I'm now questioning, I'm like 98% mythicist at this point, but we're looking at this. If we're looking at the text, I believe it's after chapter 3 in Genesis. If you go through and you really take your time and you read through it, and then chapter 3 going into 4 is where we see the fall of man, you see a shift in the authorship on how they describe God right there. So something happened, whether somebody started writing the book and then somebody else took over, or somebody started writing the book and there was this shift in mindset or societal norms or whatever it was. But you can even in the cadence in which the author is writing, there's a shift going from 3 to 4. So something happened there, and we went from really there was an identity, a gender identity for this creator, to where now it is God. It's a him. At this point, it's a him. And then your Abrahamic gods, for the most part, are I do agree with Randolph on that. Your Abrahamic gods are worshipped as him gods because they rule over the women, and women are secondary, no matter how anybody tries to chop
Property. They're property. They're not people.
Absolutely, and I do want to concede that point in the term of how the religion is practiced. Absolutely, yeah, I completely concede that point.
Yeah, I could go back a little bit to the thing you were saying about if women ran things, men would just let them.
No, I was talking about, I'm sorry, I was going back to the Allah thing. Like, I think if you asked any practicing Muslim, a woman, man, what have you, they would say, oh, Allah is a he. I mean, I think they would. I don't know. Maybe,
I mean, I would just say that, like, as far as like any Muslim that I spoke to concerning how they view God or Allah, it's always like, yes, Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet, but they always refer to God, Allah, as a he or a man, gender man. I've never heard the opposite. Now I know that there were shifts as far as like, Judaism from, multiple gods or polytheistic versus monotheism. And as far as like that particular history, it's still very foggy to me. That warrants a study for me personally. However, I've never spoken to any person that actually has these particular sensibilities of or even like practicing a monotheistic religion where God is considered a woman or have like, or female, even though I will say when I was in an all-girl Catholic school, when I was in high school, I did have our president of the school, when we would have liturgy, would say, God, our mother, father, and all of us was like, houseway. So I'm just saying that. We was like, wait, what?
That's amazing.
I'm reading a really interesting book on the Middle Ages, and I'm not very far into it, but they were talking about how, I can't remember if it was Constantine, it was one of the very early church leaders who said that the Madonna is the savior, that man is saved by woman, that through one woman, Eve, sin came into the world, and by one woman, Mary, sin is taken out of the world, and the only way to salvation is to pray to Mary.
And original sin. I can see where they got that idea.
I can see that. Yeah, that's very Catholic, if I can remember.
Oh yes. Yeah. It was one of the early Holy Roman Emperor, one of the Roman emperors. When Christianity was just taking its root in being the official religion, and so the just who was the deity hadn't even been ironed out yet. Some people were worshiping Mary.
Yeah.
And I've heard that as the reason that a lot of Christians don't consider Catholics to be Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
They have risen Mary up to being a god.
Yeah.
Catholicism is one of the biggest denominations, isn't it?
It is. Yes. It is one of the biggest and the first. Yeah, everybody broke off of the Catholicism. You know what? That's true.
Competition.
Yeah, well, that's true, Purple, when you said that, because like I remember when I was in college and I was still very much a staunch Christian. I was part of a interfaith whatever. It was kind of like a collective on campus where we actually would come together with other Christian organizations that was part of my college, and I remember specifically that the Catholics decided to withdraw from the collective because they were upset that they had other Christians that came from Protestant faiths that said that they were not Christian. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the main reasons why, is because of the exaltation of Mary.
Well, the
idea that the Catholics were the only early Christians is a myth.
Yeah.
Because before Christianity consolidated into Catholicism, there were the Gnostics and there were the and there were at least three other groups, and the Council of Nicene, the whole purpose was to try to come out with one idea of what the faith of Christianity is, because there were too many different ideas running around.
Well, now there's over 25,000 to 45,000, depending who you talk to. But this intolerance isn't new. Like, denominations have been fighting with each other for a long time, and there's people who will call each other all sorts of derogatory names. They even mislabeled each other as atheists because they're saying, "Oh, you're not believing the real God, so you're not believing in any," and stuff like that would come up.
Yeah.
And killed them.
Yeah, and Thomas Aquinas was, as I understand it, petitioning governments to kill anybody who was deemed to be an atheist, and so there's some nasty, weird stuff back then as well. And we see this with the Muslim denominations killing each other off too today.
Well, that's what I was going to say real quick. And it's a shameless plug, but I think everybody can benefit from this. But on the 30th, we have a young woman come on our channel, and we're only going by her screen name because of what she's dealing with, because of now her being an atheist and her lack of belief. She's a female former Muslim, and she has had her life threatened and almost on a daily basis. Her safety threatened, been threatened to be thrown in prison. That kind of craziness. So on the 30th, if you want to hear that, as far as like what is taught in Islam about their gods and how evil those images really are. Like, I would encourage you to watch that, because she is amazing. She's amazing.
Is she still in danger?
She's not now, but that's why she's keeping everything under wraps. As far as
because if she was, I know people who can help with that. So
so she moved away from where she was at, and now, like, even when she comes, you'll see when she comes on the channel, she wears a mask from here down, so nobody can make her out. So
this is why religion ruins everything. Okay, I'll shut up.
Poisons.
No, don't shut up. Thank you, Cynthia. You're absolutely right. I mean, and honestly, right now, what I'm seeing, because there are so many denominations of Christianity, and all of that, and at least where we are, like, at least in North America, most, it's not a big deal if you're some form of Christian. I mean, it may be to you and your family, your immediate family members, but nobody's gonna shoot you in the street for being like, I don't know, maybe I should go to the Second Baptist Church. But ex-Muslims get, especially women, get horrendous threats. I say words because I don't want this video to get repressed, but you know what they're threatened with.
Yeah, I'll say this so we don't go way off topic here, but she was trying to set up a debate on our channel with this, and I say this very, very loosely. I'm just doing it to be respectful on a channel. This other gentleman that's a Muslim, and she's trying to set up the debate. Well, as soon as he realizes that she's gonna dog him, like, on the debate, like, she knows more than him, she's more informed than he is. Then he goes to all of the brutal, masculine, like, verbal abuse and everything. And finally, I cut it off, and I was like, no, we're not doing it. Like, I don't know who you're used to dealing with, but that's not what we do here. So if you want to have a normal conversation, we can. And there's one or two more threads, so I won't go into that. But that's when, especially when females walk away from that religion, it's dangerous. It's not just like, oh, this sucks. It's
dangerous for men too, but especially for women, it's dangerous because of all the misogyny. It just makes it amplifies it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like, it's even also very sad when religion even, like, creeps itself into other organizations where you're trying to get, like, certain things accomplished. I mean, like, this is another issue that I have with God, that I remember, like, looking up a while ago the percentage of specifically African Americans that happen to be Christian, and it's damn near 80% in the United States. And it's only less than 1% that identify or are pretty much out as being atheists. So I'm part of that 1%. Hey, give props to me. So the thing about it is that even with that, they have a tendency, even in some of these particular like historical or even like newer organizations that's supposed to be pushing for social justice, that oftentimes it still follows a very much so patriarchal hierarchy of church sensibilities and values in the name of social justice. And oftentimes, even with people who are considered atheists who want to really push for, you know, social justice in their particular community, have to acquiesce to like this, like, you know, Christian thing, right? But oftentimes, like, even if you have like an issue with the leadership, because it's still set up the way that, you know, church would normally be set up. You can't question the leadership. You don't know who they're accountable to. You don't. You sometimes the agendas are not clear and clear to follow. I mean, there's so many different problems, and unfortunately, church culture lends to that, and it creeps into these particular places. And so, and then, like, you know, so like, again, if God is real, right? You want to ask God, like, why would you allow
You're fine.
certain, you know, organizations, even in this particular vernacular, to operate so haphazardly, so stuff that needs to get done does not get done? So I got questions, people. I just have questions.
Well,
Well, my biggest question for God, if there was one, would be, why did you create all these people when you clearly only intended to save a very small segment of them? You know, because if you take the most generous figures from Pew Research, it's only a third of the people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take what some Christians say, which is that the Catholics aren't Christian, you know, now we're down to about 10%. And if you say, well, the Mormons aren't Christians, and the Jehovah's Witnesses aren't Christians, and the Scientologists aren't Christians, and, you know, everyone else who doesn't believe exactly the same way as I do aren't Christians, now we're down to about 1 or 2%. And if God's only saying, why is he making all these sentient beings just so he can destroy them?
because he's an asshole. I mean, honestly, not to put too fine a point on it, but you read that book and it's horrible. It is absolutely nuts and horrible.
Why have chosen people? Why have chosen people, God? What is the purpose of that?
Well, everything you guys just said proves what we were talking about earlier. That if you are truly all-knowing, beginning to end, the Alpha and the Omega, everything you say you are in that book, and you chose it, whether it was for a reason or not. You chose to do it in that written text, and it started orally, then on tablets, then we go all the way down, and now we've reframed it and reworked it, and now we have thousands of different versions of what was supposed to be your original belief or kingdom or whatever. And now the Christians don't even know what the other Christians believe, and they don't know who believes it right and who doesn't. It's mass confusion. And guess what the Bible says? God is not the author of confusion. Fuck you. You are.
Right. Exactly. Like, you know, no, because there's a whole bunch of people that's running around here confused as fuck. Sorry, Granny. But they are, you know, and especially like this, you already know that this is a confused point right here. Depending on, I'm not even talking about Christian versus Christian. I'm just talking about a person who believes in God versus another person who believes in God. If you ask them, who is God? You're going to get so many different answers depending on who you are talking to. So if God is, again, this omniscient, omnipotent, all the omnis, right? If God is all of this, yeah, and not the author of confusion, then there should be one stipulation that any person who believes in him, I'm just going by the biblical one, that they know exactly, or they can always give the same answer to who this person is. I mean, like, if you know, like, depending on how I feel, like sometimes I feel like talking to you, sometimes I don't. But if you know me and if somebody says, who is Cynthia, they can tell you, you know. However, you can't do that with God.
Yeah. I've said I believe the Bible makes a lot more sense if you think that it was written by Satan for the purpose of causing confusion and sowing chaos among men.
Yes,
That does
yes.
make sense, actually.
Very
And
much so.
to what Cynthia, and that's brilliant, Purple. And what Cynthia just said, you could do the same thing with that question. And Jeff, just Jeff on our channel, and I've started asking it as well, as asking a Christian, no matter which denomination or brand they come from, what is the criteria, or what are the exact expectations for salvation to go to heaven? What are they go? And you get, it's a machine gun. It's across the board, right? Nobody really fucking knows.
Right. You ain't lying, because you could ask the same question depending on if you're talking to a Christian, whether they are Catholic, whether they're Episcopal, whether they're non-denominational, whether they, whatever. When it comes to method, all the different denominations. If you would ask any of them, what is the criteria of salvation? Just like you said, it's a machine gun, child. It's gonna be a whole bunch of different stuff, and they just gonna keep on shooting until something hit the wall.
Man down.
The advantage for the rest of us with them being divided into all these different denominations is that they are divided and against each other.
They will come together.
They will come together on a major issue, but nobody's bothering to uncover the minor issues when that happens, and that's where we fall apart.
No, we lose all nuance. My mom.
But the thing is, with the Muslims, they're terrified of this division, and so when you ask them about denominations, many of them will deny it right off the face of it and say, no, there's only one. All the others aren't real Muslims. They're coming into the fold. And I hear this all the time. They're terrified of being split up because they see that weakness in Christianity in the U.S. already alone and around the world. And they don't want to be weak like that in the future because they want that global caliphate. And they're afraid of losing it as they find out there's 99 known denominations already of Islam. Sunni and Shia are only merely 2 of them.
I don't care if you believe so, just leave me alone with it. That's fine. Okay. I wanted to ask Cynthia a question because I find this very interesting. I didn't know, and I have evangelical siblings who they converted from Catholicism to evangelical Christianity later, and apparently they're just really sweet because they never mentioned this. So I didn't know until I was an atheist that other denominations of Christianity didn't consider Catholics Christians. That was very confusing to me, and also the whole being saved thing. I didn't know that there was like what is it? There's a prayer, and there are altar calls.
The sinner's prayer and the altar call. That whole thing is like, so you go to the church, right, and then the pastor preaches this fiery word, and then towards the end, you get either your praise and worship team up, or you get your choir up, and then the organ goes, and the drums and the guitar, all that happens. And thank you. Go ahead and second me. Thank you. All right, I got an amen corner, people. That's great. So all this happens, like all the music and the humming, like "Come to Jesus," looking faces happening, all that stuff. Right. And then just to invoke this emotionalism, and then they said, before you leave this, you don't know what's gonna happen to you. You could die tonight. Do you know where your soul is gonna go? Right. And then people are like, oh my God, I want to be saved. And then they come up to the altar crying and whatnot. And then then the pastor said, just repeat after these words. Then I confess my sins and this, that, and the third. I am now saved. I believe in
the
Jesus.
magic words.
Right.
Yeah, because if you're raised Catholic, it's about sacraments and it's about confessing your sins and then not sinning anymore.
Exactly. Listen, like when I was Episcopal, the whole big thing was just get christened. Just get christened. Like when you're a baby, make sure that they get you like the frilliest lace white outfit that they can find. With the little capping thing. I have a picture of me as a baby, 2 months old, with the cap, the satin cap, and I looked very cute but very upset. And
I have a picture of me at my first communion. I'm dressed as a bride at 8 years old. It's so creepy.
It is. Yeah. I remember my confirmation. I was in all white, all this other stuff. And I mean, and it's and according to like Episcopals and Christian and Catholics, because like Episcopals ain't that far off, that as long as you get christened or baptized as a baby, you're saved. That's
I was
it. You
baptized
done.
5 times.
Oh wow.
I'm so sorry.
Oh wow.
Myself now. Sorry, Cynthia and I did a Catholic girl thing. I'm sorry.
4 of them were by choice.
Okay. Okay. That sounds like that's quite redundant. Well, I remember.
Consensual.
Well, actually, I should say 3 of them were by choice, but because my first baptism was into the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And then my second baptism was after I was saved and I wanted to be baptized as believers, through believers' baptism.
Mm-hmm.
And then my third baptism was because we joined a Baptist church. And to be a member in a Baptist church, you have to be baptized in the Baptist church. You can't be and I was baptized in the Evangelical Free Church. So then I got baptized in the Baptist church. And then I went to Israel with a group, and the pastor was baptizing people in the Jordan River. So I wanted to get baptized in the Jordan River. So I guess it was only 4 then.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I've been baptized 4 times.
So basically, you're telling us you really like water. That's great.
That is true. I do love water. If I could, I would I would live on a boat if I could.
I probably would too, but I would be really afraid of, depending where my boat is, about hurricanes.
I would not.
That's true.
One of the issues I have with the Catholic Church, is that I was baptized, but in the Catholic Church, they tend to baptize children when they're just a couple months old before they're old enough to speak.
Well, they want to make sure that you don't die first, because you don't want to die unbaptized. It's very bad.
Yep. Exactly.
In fact, my mother.
Let Purple finish his point. Let Purple finish. Julie, let Purple finish.
No, that was the most of it. That I was baptized when I was like 3 months old, and I just happened to get out of it in time, so I'm the only member of my family who was never confirmed.
Oh, well done. I was baptized the first week I was alive because I was born during a very bad blizzard, and so my mom couldn't get me to a church, and it was an awful winter, and her dad kept calling her, and she. There's a thing in Catholicism where if a priest is not available, any lay person can perform the offices of a priest to an extent, and baptism is one of those. So my mom baptized me, and then later when we didn't have inclement weather, there was a regular old baptism with a priest. That, of course, I don't remember because I was a baby. So.
Well, one of the problems that I have with Christianity is someone's got an echo on. Is I ask Christians, I'll tell them something that happened in my life, and they'll say, "Well, if a real Christian would not have said that to you, or a real Christian would not have done that to you." And so I ask, well, what is a real Christian? And I've yet to find anyone that can answer that question.
I've asked
earlier. Oh, I'm sorry.
I've sort of asked these kinds of questions to Christians over the years, and also Muslims, and about being Islamic. And the common denominator I find is the belief in the Christian God, and for Muslims, the belief in Allah. And many of them, almost all, but not all, but most will say worshiping the Prophet or respecting the Prophet somehow. But this belief in the deity seems to be the only common thing across all denominations, from what I can tell. Everything else is all over the board.
I think specifically for Christians, the only commonality is believing that Jesus was resurrected.
And with that,
some Christians who don't have doubts about that.
Yeah, with that, we've actually been going. The time kind of got away from me a little bit. I usually try to wind down about an hour and 20 minutes, so that everyone has time to say goodbye and chill. So we're just going to go a little over time today so we can do that. But yeah, we're almost to an hour and a half already. But I do want to give everyone a chance to express any final thoughts they might have on the topic, and shill for anything that they want to shill for. And Julie, we'll let you go first.
Turn off your microphones off.
Fiddlesticks. Okay. Final thoughts. Sorry. Yeah, I was trying to be polite. Yeah, I'm Julie. My channel is Wine and Reason. Please come check it out. And also, you can't find truth in wine, or in this case, whiskey, but you can find it in reason.
But wine and whiskey are still delicious, right?
Mm. Oh, honey, yes. My accent gets thicker as I talk about it. Yes, whiskey is good. That's it. I'm finished. Please continue.
Okay, Randolph.
Okay. Well, final thought would be don't rely on leaders. Be independent, self-reliant. And that includes deities. Those aren't leaders. Those are exploiters. And make the best for your own life as well as others. You know, these kinds of things coming from this discussion. I think this would be one very important point to keep in mind and try to strive for and encourage other people. You know, and help people. So my own website where we're trying to normalize atheism as part of our mandate is the Canadian Atheists at www.canadianatheists.ca. I also have a YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/Randolf Richardson, and that's spelled RANDOLF, followed by Richardson. And then the True North Talk program that Neil and I will be co-hosting coming up, the Atheism Call-In program. You can find out more about it at www.truenorthtalk.ca. Thank you very much for having me on Godless Granny. It was nice to talk with everybody, and I appreciate all the chatter in the audience live chat.
Okay, very good. Purple, what do you have going on? Any final thoughts that you might have?
Yeah, I don't have anything immediately planned. Like I say, on my channel, I just do casual chats with friends on Wednesdays at noon and Thursdays at midnight Central Time. And I've become a fairly regular guest star on the shills.
Okay, very good. Cynthia.
So my final thoughts are, if God was real, would it matter? No. Because if God was real, why would such an all-loving, all-knowing, and all-powerful God allow so much bullshit in the world, let alone in the universe? So no, it doesn't matter. But I would tell any person that instead of seeking answers outside of yourself, look within. Basically, everything that you need in order for you to be who you need to be or get through anything in life is already in you. As far as like upcoming things, I will be assisting and briefly appearing on Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist on February the 4th, which is the big 1-year anniversary stream that we're doing with a whole bunch of different other atheist content creators, raising money for the Recovering from Religion. Please check that out on Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist on YouTube. Also, I am a nonprofit. So I do occasionally appear on the Nonprofits, which is an ACA show that appears on Sundays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I also have my own show called The 13% that should be coming back, I want to say, in February. We're taking a break right now because we're doing some rebranding with our channel. So once we get all that settled, we will be back up and running as we are speaking about socioeconomic issues that, affect those who come from chattel slavery. And again, check out my blog, ADOS Health and Wellness, where I'm talking about the social determinants of health of African Americans that come from chattel slavery. And thank you again, Godless Granny, for allowing me to be on your platform. Always a good time.
Thank you for coming, and well said on those final remarks. That is, that's exactly what I'm all about as well. That's why, for me, it's live your life. Oz.
Well, first of all, Godless Granny, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this discussion and a great panel here for this. As far as final thoughts, we have certain people that come in our comment sections on our channel, probably like you do, Godless Granny. I'm not sure, but they're believers, and I'll respect that. But it's almost like God has called them to go and lurk and live and abide in comment sections on atheist comment sections. And I wonder what the purpose is, and if God is really being efficient with their time and their purpose and their calling in life, just hanging out with us heathens. So I often wonder that. And I really don't know if that applies to anybody in your chat room. But that's something that I've always been curious about, because I know when I was a believer for 30-something years, I did not do that. I was actually out like trying to be active and do something. But anyway, for final thoughts for the show, no, if God is proven to be real tomorrow, nothing changes, guys. Nothing changes. Life keeps going the same way it's always went, over and over and over again. So what is the point in a God? What's the use in a God? So again, godless granny things. And I know Purple, you guys teamed up as far as the subject, and any conversations like this, I love talking about it. So if you ever are short on people, hit me up. I'd love to help in the future. But as far as playing, again, I tried to keep this as simple as I can. TART.live is our website. Really, anything you need to know about us is going to be on there. The two shows that I'll plug here at the end is one on February 20th. We are having an entire stream dedicated to brand new atheist, skeptic, critical thinking channels, YouTube channels, and we just want to promote, man. We want to push them forward and get them as much hype as we can around their channels and more importantly their content. What they're putting out there too. Like it says on our thumbnail, normalizing atheism. That we get to normalize that conversation and doing that. And then lastly, I am. Well, I already said this earlier, so I don't have to waste time saying it. I'm essentially working my way into mythicism when it comes to the existence of Jesus. And on the 23rd or 27th, it'll be on the website. We have a huge panel. We're going to have an open dialogue panel discussion on is Jesus a myth, and we're going to have godless engineer, atheist pastor, who else was on there? Atheist Cats, Captain Dadpool, Ricky, and there's somebody else that has their degree in Bible history. I can't remember who it was right now. But the entire episode, hour and a half, is going to be on that. What does the text say? What's the data? What are the dates? And all that. So check that one out. And then, like I said, on the 30th, Infidel Noodle is her screen name. The ex-Muslim, now atheist. Check that out. And thank you. I've had fun.
Okay, very good. And as far as final thoughts from me, first, next week, I am not going to stream at this time because I do not want to bump up against your friendly neighborhood atheist show, and he streams at the same time as I do. So I have not decided whether I will move to Wednesday for next week or if I will just go early next week. I will probably just go early next week and find a couple of UK guests that normally can't be here because it's so late at night in the UK when we have our normal streaming hour. So next week, I haven't decided who's going to be on. I haven't decided what the topic's going to be yet, but do look for me at a special time next week. And then the following week, I will return to my regular time. And then we will be, it'll be my next episode of Why Are We Here? And Holy Kool-Aid will be here and Aaron Ra will be here. So that's going to be a really special show. And as far as produced videos, I just produced something today. Today I gave it to Atheist Edge. I did part of the Atheist Edge project, 666 Things Your Religious Teacher Never Told You. And mine is going to be in episode 30, I believe. So when episode 30 comes out, you can look for me there. And so, of course, what I produce there is not going to be available for a while, not until Atheist Edge publishes his first. And then I found the strangest video just this afternoon. And so I'm starting to work on another produced video. If you remember Grayson Fritz, the pastor that I awarded worst sermon ever, he's one of the NIFB pastors from All Scripture Baptist Church. He actually says in this video that he wants to be deplatformed. So I'm going to give him a hand.
Nice of
Yep, he said that's his goal for New Year's is to get his church deplatformed, and yeah, and so he did us. What?
I was just gonna say, if I can help, just let me know.
Why does he
Send
want
up the bad signal.
Why does he want that?
Probably so I can feel
Because he thinks that a real preacher needs to be standing up and being a transphobe and a homophobe. And if you're not a transphobe and a homophobe, then you're a coward as a preacher. And so he's going to blast his homophobia and his transphobia and see how long it takes him to get deplatformed.
Is this Greg Locke?
No, this is Grace and Fritz, All Scripture Baptist Church.
Yeah, it's great.
Will you-
He's of
Will you
the same.
will you put that in the private chat, because I want to go after that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I'm making a response to it.
yeah, these are the folks who say that everybody like me and Junk Shop and Robin, I'm sorry, Granny, but to say this about your kids sucks, but think that all of us should just be hanged in the street.
And he's also the one that said that all women need to obey their husbands. If their husbands tell them to jump off a cliff, they should kiss them goodbye and do it.
Well, good thing I have a husband.
I'm very glad that my wife is not like that, and you need somebody who to be with who will challenge you instead of just be subservient, I think.
Yeah,
Yep.
see, this is where, like, that kind of stuff, like, I've got past the angry atheist stage. Like, I've been through that for a while now. But when I hear those things, it's not even about angry atheists. Atheist has nothing to do with this shit. It's to do the word, and I will keep my language at a minimum right now, because this makes me want to go fly.
Well said so far.
But this isn't about a lack of belief in a God anymore. It's about that you suck as a human being. You're terrible as a human being. And yes, I will come up for air. And yes, I will get passionate. And maybe a little bit of the ghetto Oz still comes out when you act like an idiot.
You know,
Like, you don't want to make us roll up. Don't make us roll up when you want to start threatening family members. Jesus Christ. I'm done. I'm muting.
I support Ghetto Oz. Do that shit. I totally support it in this particular realm. And the only time that I'm not married, but if I was, if you tell me to jump off a cliff, can it be off of the cliffs of Negril? I've been wanting to do that for a minute.
Yeah. I know what you mean, Oz. It's infuriating, and at that point, it becomes about people. It becomes about human beings helping other human beings instead of putting other human beings down. And
the whole attitude of intolerance, and these people keep saying God is all about love and very loving, and the world needs Christianity for ethics and morals, and yet we see constant displays of this intolerance over and over again. And if it's not one thing, it's something else. It's as if they can't rest without having somebody to pick on.
Right?
Yeah, I think anybody who points to the Bible as the base of all morality has never read the Old Testament.
or any of it. I mean,
to that point, Purple, any person who points to the Bible as the basis of morality, who's never read, who has obviously not read the Old Testament, I question if you even know what morality is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not objective, I can tell you that. It's subjective.
That's true.
yeah.
No lies told.
And when people say that the morality comes from God and therefore it's objective, that's just a deity with an opinion. So it's still subjective.
It depends on how you define objective. If by objective you mean observable, then yes, it's objective.
No, it means independent of mind. It's that's the way it is.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's different definitions of the word objective. Yeah.
Well, they mean it permeates the whole universe because it comes from God who's everywhere. That's what always comes up.
There's 6 atheists here. We could talk about that all night. So
Yeah, we'll save that for another week.
I better say that's a different stream, people.
Let's all do this again. This would be great.
Exactly. I'm down.
Maybe we'll make that next week's topic.
that'd be great.
Cool.
Okay. So anyway, look for those things coming up. And thank you to my guests. Thank you to everyone in the chat. You have all made for a very wonderful discussion. This has been a wonderful evening. And just want to tell everyone, yes, wear a mask, don't be a dick, and live your life.
Indeed.
Well said.